Well, there's the forest from which we just emerged, and this is the former Boise Cascade land. If you look over there in the distance, those two water towers out there, those are all that's left of the Boise Cascade plant that they are just in the process of completing a teardown so they can put in a new modern shopping mall. This was a settling pond where they would have all their wood chips and refuse that would come out of the process of dealing with the logs and making paper at the Boise Cascade plant all the way up to the 1960s, and it would settle in here. They'd divert water in here and let it all settle down. Now you'll notice there's these stone blocks here all the way around. They form a circle, and they all have little rings on them. This one is a good example. It has an old rusted ring that's broken off, and a new silver ring that was put in, I guess, sometime later. Blocks are pretty big, about 3.5 by 3.5 feet. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them here, and again they're arranged in something of a circle. In the center of this circle are these posts, rusted metal posts, and tied to one is this wire, which is actually snapped off at this end. There's another wire over there, same way, cable. And then there's this thing, which looks like the lid to something in this settling pond, and some weirdly colored dirt and a depression right here, little rusted metal all the way around. So the real question is, what is this place? One wonders. Well, Teresa's gone out into the field to go check out an old blockhouse she's wanted to get to, but we couldn't go there because this area is filled with water in the winter. It just becomes a complete big old pond, even though they no longer fill it with their waste products. It fills up by itself. And they still have some kind of rigging on the sides here. I've climbed up there before, up on the ladders, and looked out over this area. Ladders are very rotten. Kind of a dangerous and silly thing to do, but I just wanted to see what it looked like. I think I took a video of that one of my previous trips. Anyway, it's a very large area right outside of the city of Salem. In fact, if you look straight out there, you can see the Capitol building with that little glint of gold way in the distance, right in the middle of the frame. That's the state Capitol building, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in the 1930s, when the old building, which dated back to the 1800s, burned down in the fire. And in a park area around that Capitol, they have columns from the old Capitol building and bricks that remained. They all toppled down during the fire. Columns were actually made of brick and covered with concrete so that they would look more like Roman columns or Greek columns or something. And a lot of the people who live around there, there's a creek called Mill Creek, runs right through the center of town, and a lot of people who live around there in the 1930s, after the fire, gathered up a lot of the brick, and they made their patios out of that brick, or walkways that went down to the creek, or overlooked at little areas. And to this day, you can find some of the historic bricks from the original Oregon State Capitol building in backyards all along that area of Mill Creek. Well, you can't see the blockhouse right now because it's too low, but what you can see is another one of those mooring pads. Now, I don't know what they put out here or how they tried to lift it out or what they were doing, but this whole shallow area that would fill with water had mooring pads at strategic places right smack dab in the center. Now you can barely begin to see the blockhouse up there, and I'm going to close the video for now until I get closer with Teresa and can finally make it up after a couple of years of trying to that blockhouse and see what it's all about.